Chapter 3, Section 1, the Panoramic Curve. The icon to access this function is located at the top of the window where you see a symbol shaped like an arch. When you hover the mouse, a banner will appear displaying Panoramic Curve as its label. By left-clicking on it, you'll then have the ability to generate sectional views of the patient's arch. This is done by performing a series of left clicks along the arch, which then generate our sectional views. Let's go ahead and demonstrate the panoramic curve. The icon is located near the top of the window, and as we hover the mouse, a label appears that says Panoramic Curve. Left click, and then from the drop-down menu, the first option we'll choose is Auto. When we do that, we have now migrated away from our NPR window, and we are now in our curve window itself. The curve window is separated into four sections: our sectional view, our panoramic view, our axial view, which is the same view as the axial view in our NPR view, and our 3D rendering we see here is also the same view as we have in our 3D window under the NPR screen. Going back over to our curve window and focusing on our axial view, we have our auto curve, which was placed on top of our axial window here. However, we have the ability where we can modify this based on the actual anatomy of our patient. To do that, we can left click on these blue lines. In this case here, I'm going to center it where this circle is in between the buccal plate and lingual plate near the anterior region of our arch, and then modify the arch to match the morphology of our patient by left clicking on the circles and putting them into position. Left click here, bring us back over here, let go of the mouse again, left click, bring this back here, left click, make this more posterior here, and basically in this case here, simply splitting the ridge in this case, and then perform the same thing on the left hand side of our anatomy. If I wish to add a point between two existing points, I can right click the mouse, left click on insert point, left click to place our landmark, and then left click to put that into position. The more landmarks that we place, the more flexibility we have in terms of manipulating our pan curve view. We will come back to our sectional, panoramic, and 3D view in a moment. In this case here, I'm going to demonstrate how to do a panoramic curve, but this time do it manually. We'll go ahead and navigate back over to our NPR window, left click again on panoramic curve, and this time here I'm going to left click on manual. To digitize our landmarks to draw our panoramic curve, we strongly recommend identifying the curve to start on the right hand side of the anatomy and essentially going in a clockwise direction and placing landmarks roughly 1 centimeter apart. So we'll start just outside the scan, left click once, go towards the anterior portion of the arch, left click again, left click again, left click again, and so on, and I'll place a landmark near the midline here, and I'll continue to the other side, placing landmarks again roughly 1 centimeter apart. And when I've gotten to the other side over here, I can now double click my mouse, and now I've generated a pan curve here again. In this case here, these circles represent each left click that was made with the mouse going all around the arch, which can then still be modified as needed, which will then update my view and my panorama view as well as my sectional views. In this next example, we'll do a pan curve now that's going to be specific to the maxillary arch. In this case here, we can either go to the NPR window again and move the axial up into the maxillary arch itself, or we can work with this screen right here. By selecting the Enter key on the keyboard, we can hide those sectional lines, and then by utilizing the center wheel of my mouse, I can then look at my 3D rendering in the bottom left hand corner where I see the green lines going more superior, and now I'm near the sinus floor, and then maybe perhaps come down where I look at bone level and the roots of my teeth, and then go ahead and left click on Panoramic Curve again. I'm going to go ahead and digitize again here, starting from the right hand side of my anatomy and going clockwise. Again, placing between 5 and 7 landmarks per side of the arch, placing a landmark at my midline, and continuing on the left hand side of my anatomy. When I'm done, I double click again, and now I've generated my pan curve here now specific to the maxillary arch. It's important to note that we've generated 3 panoramic curves so far. To access the 3 curves, you can either left click on the icon at the top that says Curve Manager and identify the 3 curves you have here, such as the first one here, and then left click on Show. It'll then change our view to the first pan curve, which was our auto curve. A shortcut to those same options is listed in the upper right hand corner here, as indicated by the first curve, which was our auto curve, the second, which was our manual curve of our mandible, and the third, which was a manual curve of our maxillary arch. Let's spend a few moments identifying what we're looking at here in our panoramic pane of the curve window. In the upper right hand corner, we can evaluate and assess how much physical anatomy we're viewing by left clicking on the abbreviation for TH for 2.0 millimeters. What this is identifying for us is that we are looking at 2 millimeters of anatomy, or 1 millimeter of anatomy on either side of those 3 blue lines. I can change the thickness of my anatomy, say to 20 millimeters, left click on OK, and now I'm viewing 10 millimeters of anatomy on either side of that center blue line and generating a view that looks more consistent of that of a 2D panorama image. The trade-off with this view is even though I'm seeing more physical anatomy, I'm seeing less detail. However, if I left click and change my thickness, say down to 1 millimeter, left click on OK, now it's the reverse. I'm seeing less physical anatomy, but I'm now seeing greater detail. The thickness you choose may depend on the type of treatment planning or diagnostics. For instance, looking for root fractures might be ideal when using a thinner slice of anatomy, versus doing implant planning where I want to see the angle of my adjacent teeth in a dentulous site. Perhaps I want to be able to see more physical anatomy. I also have the ability to change how much physical anatomy I'm seeing in this window by adjusting the outer perimeter of my view. By left clicking on the outside frame, I can left click where it changes yellow and then change this going in a vertical direction, which then allow me to see more physical anatomy. The center line here, my midpoint, I can left click, bring it down perhaps towards the occlusion, and then continue adjusting this to see more physical anatomy going in the vertical direction. I can left click here to maximize my view here as well. And in addition to that, I can also change my MPR view or my grayscale view to another grayscale view, which is my maximum intensity projection or MIP view, such as this. I can also left click one more time and go to a virtual rendering view or VR view here as well. And I can also change my thickness there one more time, perhaps going out to 20 millimeters, clicking on OK, to view 20 millimeters of anatomy. At this point in time, we recommend pausing the video to replicate the steps to generate a panoramic curve with your 3D software.